Right now, when you look in the mirror, you see a human. But 50,000 years ago, if you walked across this planet, you would have found others who looked almost like you, but not quite. Some shorter and built like tanks, some with heavy brows and enormous hands, some so small they could walk under your outstretched arm, some so mysterious we know them more from a fragment of DNA than from a single face. They were all human, every one of them, and every single one of them is gone. Today, when we say human, we mean one thing, one species, one branch, you. But that is only true because every other meaning of the word disappeared, and nobody, not one of them, saw it coming. Here is the question that should keep you up at night. We are not the strongest human species that ever lived, not the oldest, not the one that survived the longest. We are simply the last one standing, and the story of how we got here and how the others didn't is not the clean, flattering story you were probably told. It is messier than that, stranger, and in some ways, much more frightening. Because extinction, it turns out, does not only happen to the weak, it happens to the isolated, the unlucky, the specialized, and the ones living through changes too fast to survive. Sound familiar? Let's start with the one that should make us the most nervous. Meet Homo erectus. And understand this, they were not a failed experiment. In almost every measurable way, they were one of the most successful humans who ever lived. They appeared roughly 2 million years ago. Long legs, shorter arms, a body built for walking and running across open land. They were likely the first humans to spread beyond Africa, reaching parts of Asia and surviving across environments that would destroy an unprepared modern person in days. They made tools, they hunted, they lived through climate shifts that reshuffled the planet multiple times, and they lasted. For over 1 million years, they lasted. Think about that number for a second. Homo sapiens, us, have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Homo erectus outlasted us more than 3 times over. If our species feels permanent, Homo erectus should make you genuinely nervous. And then, they were gone. The last known Homo erectus fossils come from the island of Java, dated somewhere between 117,000 and 108,000 years ago. No dramatic final battle, no clear catastrophe, just increasingly sparse evidence, then silence. Maybe their remaining populations became too isolated. Maybe climate rearranged their world faster than they could follow. Maybe something new arrived that tipped an already fragile balance. We don't know exactly, and that's the lesson Homo erectus teaches before anything else. Surviving for a very long time does not mean surviving forever. The clock runs for everyone, including us. Then there were the Neanderthals, and almost everything you think you know about them is wrong. For a long time, the image was simple. Brutish, slow, half-human, stumbling through cold caves, barely smarter than the animals they hunted. That image is not just incomplete, it is almost the opposite of true. Neanderthals were not a failed version of us. They were a different answer to the same question. How do you survive an ice age planet? Their bodies were built for cold in ways ours simply aren't. Shorter, denser, wider-chested, with bones so thick that when scientists first analyzed them, they could barely believe they were looking at a human. Their noses were enormous, not a flaw, an engineering solution, designed to warm and humidify freezing air before it reached the lungs. They hunted large animals at close range. Their injuries look like the injuries of modern rodeo riders, the kind you earn by being dangerously close to something that can kill you. They used fire. They made tools sophisticated enough to require planning and teaching. They almost certainly cared for injured group members. The evidence for this is in bones that healed from injuries no one could have survived without help. They may have used pigments. They may have made jewelry. They buried their dead. They were people. Of a different kind, but people. And for hundreds of thousands of years, they survived everything this planet threw at them. But here's the number that changes everything. At their peak, the total global Neanderthal population was likely around 10,000 to 70,000 individuals. At their low points, some genetic estimates suggest there may have been fewer than 5,000 Neanderthals left on the entire planet. Fewer people than fit in a modern high school. Imagine carrying the future of your entire species in a single cave, knowing that one bad winter could end it all. Then Homo sapiens moved into their territory, and within roughly 5,000 to 10,000 years of our arrival, a blink in geological time, the physical evidence of Neanderthals disappears. But here's where the story gets complicated. The old answer, we arrived, we were smarter, we destroyed them, is probably too clean. Neanderthals lived in small, scattered groups. Small populations are fragile in ways large ones aren't. A bad winter, a failed hunt, a disease, a birth rate slightly too low for slightly too long. Ancient DNA shows that some late Neanderthal groups had extremely low genetic diversity, meaning they may have already been struggling before we became a serious factor at all. Add to that a climate that kept shifting, cold phases, warm phases, forests advancing and retreating, prey animals moving, and then add a new human species entering the same territories. A species with wider social networks, faster cultural exchange, not necessarily smarter in every way, but more connected, more flexible, better at surviving disruption. When Neanderthals disappeared, it may not have been because they lost one great war. It may have been because they lost 1,000 small ones, against isolation, against climate, against time, against a species that happened to be slightly better at staying networked when the world stopped making sense. And here's the part your body already knows, even if your mind hasn't caught up. You carry Neanderthal DNA right now, between 1 and 4% of your genome, if your ancestry traces outside sub-Saharan Africa. Some of your immune responses, some of your cold weather adaptations, parts of how your body works today came directly from people who no longer exist as a species. They didn't disappear completely. They disappeared into us. Stop for a second. We've covered 2 human species so far. One lasted over 1 million years, one survived ice ages that would kill a modern person in days, and at their lowest point, their entire global population could fit inside a single sports stadium. Both are gone. What does that say about permanence? What does that say about us? Comment below, which extinction do you think was the biggest loss for humanity? I'm reading every answer. Then there are the Denisovans. And the Denisovans are something else entirely because they are almost like ghosts. For Neanderthals, we have skulls, bones, tools, possible burial sites. For Denisovans, the story began with a fragment, a single piece of finger bone found in a cave in Siberia, so small it seemed impossible that it could change anything. But DNA extracted from that fragment didn't match Neanderthals, didn't match Homo sapiens. It was something else, a previously unknown human species discovered not from a skeleton, but from a molecule. What we've pieced together since, Denisovans may have ranged across an enormous territory, Siberia, the Tibetan Plateau, possibly Southeast Asia, possibly the Pacific. Their genetic shadow is enormous. Modern populations in Oceania and parts of Asia carry Denisovan ancestry. Tibetan people today carry a version of a gene linked to surviving high altitude that they inherited from Denisovan-related humans. A species that disappeared 40,000 years ago is still helping living people today breathe in thin mountain air. But as a living population, gone. The youngest Denisovan fossil evidence is around 40,000 years old. After that, silence. No monuments, no cities, no stories, almost no bones. Just DNA scattered through the genomes of people alive right now and a handful of fragments in a Siberian cave. The Denisovans remind us of something uncomfortable. A human species can disappear so completely that almost nothing remains except code hidden inside people who don't even know it's there. And then there is Homo Floresiensis, the strangest one. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a small tropical island 50,000 years ago. Volcanic peaks hidden in mist, jungle running right down to the shoreline. The air is thick, wet, buzzing with insects. You've just landed on this island, exhausted, hungry, scanning the tree line for danger. And across the beach, half hidden in the vegetation, something is watching you. It stands upright. It has hands like yours, but it's barely a meter tall, and it is not Homo sapiens. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, scientists found the remains of a tiny ancient human standing roughly 1 meter tall, small brain, small body, nicknamed, inevitably, the Hobbit. At first, no one could believe they were real. Diseased modern humans? An abnormal population? But the evidence kept pointing to the same conclusion. A separate human species evolved in isolation on a small island, shaped by rules that don't apply on continents. Islands do strange things to evolution. Large animals shrink when food is limited and there are no large predators to run from. This is called island dwarfism, and Homo floresiensis may be the most dramatic example in the entire human family tree. A human being, fully human, reduced to hobbit size by tens of thousands of years of island life. They made tools, they hunted dwarf elephants, they survived Komodo dragons. They lived on an island that would challenge a modern survival team with full equipment. Their fossils date to roughly 100,000 to 60,000 years ago. Stone tools associated with them appear as recently as 50,000 years ago. 50,000 years ago. The same general window when Homo sapiens were moving through the region. And then Homo floresiensis vanished. Maybe the island's ecosystem collapsed. Maybe volcanic activity disrupted everything. Maybe Homo sapiens arrived and tipped an already fragile balance. On a small island, you don't need a global catastrophe to erase an entire species. You just need enough small problems stacking on top of each other. Less prey, less water, one bad generation, one eruption, and a population that was never large enough to absorb the shock. That's what makes Homo floresiensis so unsettling. They weren't trying to dominate the world. They were just trying to survive one island. And even that wasn't enough. So, why did Homo sapiens survive when the others didn't? This is where the answer becomes dangerous if we make it too simple. It's tempting to say we were smarter, but Neanderthals were intelligent. Their tools required planning. Their society required care. Denisovans adapted to environments that would kill most modern humans without oxygen tanks. Homo erectus survived for over 1 million years on raw resourcefulness. Homo floresiensis lived on a nightmare island and thrived for tens of thousands of years. The answer cannot just be intelligence. Maybe intelligence was never the thing evolution selected for most strongly. Maybe the thing that really mattered, the thing that kept one branch alive while all the others fell, was connectedness. Homo sapiens appear to have been unusually good at building and maintaining large social networks, not just families, not just small bands, but wider webs of people, knowledge, tools, and information that stretched across geography and time. If one group failed, another could carry the knowledge forward. If one region became hostile, people could move and be received somewhere else. If one tool worked, it could spread across hundreds of kilometers without anyone having to reinvent it. That network, the space between brains, not just the brain itself, may be our greatest advantage. Not the individual mind, the collective one. Other human species had culture, but Homo sapiens may have built culture that traveled farther, changed faster, and connected more people. And when the planet became unstable, when climate shifted, when food moved, when the rules kept changing, a connected species could absorb shocks that isolated groups could not. But even that is not the whole story. Luck mattered, geography mattered, population size mattered, timing mattered. We may have survived partly because we were adaptable, and partly because we happened to be in the right places, with the right numbers, at the right moments in history. The margin between survival and extinction for us was probably thinner than we like to believe. If the climate had wobbled slightly differently, if a few more of us had died in a bottleneck, Neanderthals might be the ones watching this video and wondering what happened to us. The other humans were not stepping stones to us. They were not rough drafts. They were not unfinished sketches waiting to become Homo sapiens. They were their own experiments, their own histories, their own complete ways of being human, with their own knowledge, their own relationships, their own ways of sitting around a fire and making sense of the dark. And now, they are gone. Homo erectus, after more than 1 million years. Neanderthals, who survived ice ages we can barely imagine, their last few thousand souls scattered across a continent too big for their numbers. Denisovans, who left behind almost nothing except a fragment of bone and a ghost in your DNA. Homo Floresiensis, the tiny island humans who vanished right around the time we arrived, perhaps the last ones to see us coming. Today, when we say human, we mean one thing. We mean us. But we only mean us because every other meaning disappeared. We are not the peak of a ladder. We are the last living branch of a tree that used to have many living branches. And the branches didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because they were isolated, or unlucky, or specialized in exactly the wrong direction, or caught in a change that moved faster than survival could. Now, here's something strange to sit with. There's a specific kind of loneliness that modern humans feel, a sense of being the only one, of being fundamentally separate from the rest of the natural world. Psychologists have names for it. Poets have written about it for centuries. You've probably felt it, late at night, in a quiet moment, when the world feels vast and you feel singular. What if that loneliness isn't just philosophy? What if it's a memory? For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors shared this planet with other kinds of people. Not enemies, not monsters, just others, different. And then, gradually, they were gone. We became the only ones, and we've been trying to fill that silence ever since. You still carry them, a little Neanderthal in your immune system, a Denisovan adaptation that might help you breathe at altitude, echoes of extinct populations woven into the code that built your body. You are not purely Homo sapiens. You are the last surviving composite of a family that used to be much larger. And one day, if we are not careful, if we forget how fragile connectedness really is, the last human species could learn the same lesson the others did. The question is not whether we are the best humans who ever lived. The question is whether we are wise enough to be the last ones. Subscribe and remember what you're actually made of and what didn't make it.